Hi everyone. I want to take a little bit of time and talk to you about the assignment that you have for this semester to write your reading autobiography. So this week you're reading Anna Quinlan's memoir, How Reading Changed My Life, and I want you to use that as kind of a spur to get you thinking about your own reading autobiography and your own reading life. So a reading autobiography, like it says in the assignment, is your personal memoir of being read to, of learning to read, of titles or authors, genres of books that you read growing up. I want to learn about your experiences as a reader, your literacy history. So this is going to be a description of memories that you have of reading, of visiting libraries, of being read to, of your family members telling you stories orally, just your literacy history. These memories could be either positive or negative, and some of you may have more memories than others of this. That's okay. Um, when I think about my own reading history, I think about the fact that I grew up in a family of readers. My parents were readers. My grandmother was a reader. I spent lots of time going to the library with my grandmother in the summers because she volunteered at the library in the town where she lived. And so every summer when I went to visit, I got to participate in the public library's summer reading program. So she was a special person that I read with quite often. A favorite place to read, we had an armchair in my house that I loved to sit in, and I always sat in it sideways when I was reading so that my legs were hanging over the arm of the chair. Um, a favorite time to read, I read all the time, but I used to read a lot before bed. I would read in bed before I went to sleep. And that was true even in middle school and high school. That wasn't just limited to my early years. For your reading autobiographies, I want you to focus as much as you can on your secondary years. So your years in middle school, in high school, and even now as a teacher. These reading autobiographies, there's a long history of people writing reading biographies in courses on young adult literature. It started with a guy named Bob Carlson, who was one of the first people to teach courses in adolescent literature. And he served as a mentor for many people who are currently teaching adolescent literature in colleges around the country. And he collected reading autobiographies over the course of all of his years teaching at the post-secondary level in colleges. And he learned a lot about his students as readers, but he also began to see patterns that emerged in reading biographies across years worth of student submissions. One of his doctoral students, named Anne Sherrill, um, at one point in her college career, collected all of those reading autobiographies and did a lot of data analysis with them. And she and Bob Carlson published what they found out about readers in a book called Voices of Readers. If you're interested in looking at a copy of it, I have a couple copies in my office that I'd be welcome to share with you guys. Um, but it'll be interesting as you start to work on these reading biographies and to talk to each other to see what kind of similarities and patterns you're seeing across those things. Um, so as you're working on it, you can also include what you like to read as an adult. Um, and think about also your enjoyment of reading, your attitudes about reading. Uh, in addition, I want you to think about how you share that enthusiasm or don't share that enthusiasm with the students that you work with. Do you participate in any student-oriented social networks or other digital forums where you share your love of literacy? So in thinking about completing this assignment, know that this is a memoir, so it should be written in first person. That's the correct way to write this kind of assignment. Before you start writing, I would suggest you do some initial brainstorming. List memories that you have from your early years, even from before school began, and throughout elementary, middle, high school, college, all the way into adulthood. You might even create a like a 5-column chart where you think about early literacy, literacy in elementary school, literacy in middle school and high school and college. So for me, in my early years, I remember one of my favorite books to read was Corduroy, and I got to read it aloud to other classrooms when I was in first grade. When I think about middle school, I remember reading The Hobbit because it was assigned. And the thing that I liked most about reading The Hobbit was the project that I did that went along with it. I remember in high school, there was a lot of assigned reading that I did like, or that I didn't like, but some of the reading that I did was kind of managed choice, where the teacher gave a list of books for us to choose from. I remember loving the book Anna Karenina and loving the book Tess of the D'Urbervilles. I did a lot of other reading besides what was assigned, but those are two books that were assigned for me to read in 12th grade that I loved. In college, lots of academic reading, sometimes not as much as should have been going on. And now I love to read all kinds of stuff. I read adult nonfiction, fiction. Um, I love to read YA in middle grade, and I read a ton of picture books. So that's kind of how my brainstorming would look. And I can name specific authors and books from each of those time periods. Uh, like I said, the memories can be positive or negative, so be honest in your writing about how you feel about books and reading and how you felt at different times in your life. When I was in graduate school, I didn't feel very good about the reading I was doing. It was all required reading. It was very dry, no choice. I know when I finished graduate school, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief, and I had stacks and stacks of pleasure reading that had stacked up waiting for me. It may help you to talk to some family members about memories that you may have forgotten. So I know I could call up either one of my parents and talk to them about what are some things you remember about me as a reader when I was a kid. You'll want to make sure that you write an interesting introduction. I know you guys teach this to your students, but you want to be able to hook all of us as readers into your narrative. And then, of course, include a conclusion that wraps up the narrative. Um, Even though you're writing a memoir and you're writing in first person, it's still academic writing, so I do expect you to write to the best of your abilities. If you'll look on the syllabus, it tells you when that assignment is due, and I'll give you instructions later on for how I'd like for you to submit it. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, have fun thinking about your reading life.